Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mumey, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome to 2024. It is January 10th, Wednesday. I have returned from South America. Let me just say, to be back in the United States. It's very cool. I am joined today by Judge Tracey and by Amanda. We are delighted to have you guys here with us. And how's everybody doing? Amanda, you had a good New Year's?
Yeah, I did have a good New Year's. I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but I do feel really excited about the new year. Maybe some people are still feeling that overwhelm in reality that the bar is just around the corner, but there's still plenty of time. And I hope that people are feeling invigorated by the new year. Holidays are behind us. Right? No more
Yeah,
balancing holidays and family.
absolutely. And Tracey, I know you had a successful work on your knees and you're here and ready to roll.
I'm ready to rock and roll. Rock and roll with me.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad that the holidays are over because we can get into a more standardized routine. And I think for you all, this is really important right now.
Yeah, so the bar is eminent, right? But there is still so much time to improve. So I think that it's about making the best use of your time, right? So if you're floundering around without direction or you keep spitting out the same essays, or no matter how many times you practice an essay, you're still going over on time, you're not getting enough words. Now is the time to it's more important than ever to get direction in. What you don't want to happen is it be 4 weeks from now and you're looking for direction, right? There's a lot less we can do. Can we still do stuff? Sure. But this is the time where it's eminent. If you've been on the fence about coaching and you're getting the same results, right? With Einstein's definition of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. Now's the time to get focused, get guidance, or if you're just starting our course, there is still time, but you're probably going to need some more guidance. You don't have the luxury of time on your side right now. It's not a rush. I don't think anyone should be getting too anxious, but we got to be smart about the way we're going forward now.
Yeah, I think that's really the case. You know, people struggle with, do I need to add the coaching or not? In general, coaching is beneficial for you. I think you should do it if you can. And of course, the other question that comes up is, how do you pay for it? We've added these third-party companies, Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay, which allow you to spread out the cost of the coaching over a period of months. And I would say that's a great way to do that. We do offer a 12-month payment plan, but it'll cost you a bit more to work that way, but it's certainly an option. You'll find all the links to the coaching calls or to the upgrade coaching packages in your online course in the upgrade center. And if you're having any trouble, just let us know about that. We'll be glad to assist you with that. But this is the time. And the other thing I would say is that once you've made that decision to get enrolled, you will have the link to the coach that you've selected, and you can start scheduling calls right away. That's something that we think makes a big difference, and we really want you to check that out and to do it. Tracey, any comments that you have about the timing on coaching calls right now?
This is the time that you need to be ramping up for the test. So it does run parallel to personal coaching right now because what we will do is ramp you up because of the time. But we have the time to spend with you and we're not going to short circuit anything. This is the week. Invest in yourself,
Yeah.
get some help. It really does make a big difference.
Yeah, I think it does. I definitely encourage that. And if you're having any trouble figuring out how to do that, just reach out. But we've got some, as I said, we've got some great questions. And then at the end of our time together, Tracey is going to talk about New Year's resolutions. If there's time left over after that, I will regale you with stories of why you shouldn't be your own travel agent. There you go. All right. There's a video in there somewhere, I'm pretty sure. Let's go ahead and jump to our questions. As I said, we got a lot of questions as we reach this stage of the year. One of the questions that came up, we got a whole range of questions. that occurred when the New York bar examiners in the last week or so changed their rules again about admissions. And they sent out a whole new raft of rules, and it's complicated. And there's all these new rules and restrictions about retaking the exam and proving that you're serious about taking the exam and signing up on the right times and so on. Now, we've said in other calls and other Q&As that you got to be checking your email and your spam folders and all of those things, that we can't do that for you. Unfortunately, we got an email from a student, and this was just a heartbreak, really. The student said, I just saw the email from the New York bar examiners, and I'm dismayed to find that I've been removed from the laptop program because I failed to complete the registration on time. I didn't see any of the reminders. Everything went into my spam box. I called the administrators and ExamSoft too, and they said, we don't have control of your spam box, so you have to handwrite your exam. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I cannot overemphasize this. You have to be on top of these deadlines and changes, and don't assume that it's going to stay static between now and the exam. Amanda, you remember during COVID how much things changed, like almost weekly?
Yeah, and it was extremely stressful. And I can't tell you all, I lost my COVID vaccine card somehow, like 2 weeks before the bar exam. And to get a new COVID vaccine card, I was the expert in that after. And then on the day of the exam, they didn't even check the vaccine cards. So I was driving around to local hospitals. I was calling the federal government line about how do you get a new vaccine card. I was ready to get the shot again. I didn't even know what would happen. But it was incredibly stressful during COVID, and it's still incredibly stressful now, but it just changed so often. And yeah, I don't know, the things going to spam is a constant problem for all examinees. We are always saying that. And I was checking my spam religiously, so terrified that they were even going to cancel the exam or something like that.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize, do not assume here on January 10th that everything is going to stay static to the end of February. History tells us it won't. New York made these huge changes, and they really didn't do anything except send out an email. And if you're not checking the email or it's going to your spam, you have no way of knowing. They're not reaching out and knocking on your door. Look, you got a spam box? Look at it. You got a regular email inbox? Look at it. Do not rely on a third party to tell you, and don't wait for it to happen and then be shut out. So now, unfortunately for this student, as they learned, the New York examiner said, too bad. It's not our fault that you didn't check your email and you got to handwrite your exam. Now, we've talked in the past about when you had a choice between handwriting and typing, and we've said pretty much consistently, you should type your exam. But now this student's dilemma is this. And the student went on to say, do you know any people that have handwritten the essays on the exam day and been successful? The answer is yes.
Of course, yeah.
We didn't have computers back then.
Tracy, cave walls. But I can say that because I did it too. But really, even in I wanted to share an anecdote. In the last exam in, was it July of 2023? I forget when it was. We had a California student who got to the exam and had mixed up what days each part of the exam was testing. They thought that the first day was multi-state. It wasn't. It was the written portion, and they didn't bring their laptop. And so suddenly they were really in a position where they either had to walk away from the exam or handwrite, and they handwrote the exam. And even in California, where repeat bar takers have a pass rate of zilch, basically 20%, they pass the exam. And it's an interesting story. You can pass when you handwrite. And here's the mantra that I use. If any of you are familiar with Marie Forleo, she's got a great approach to this. She says everything is figure outable. And it is. Everything is figure outable. You don't have to give up here. It's not ideal, but it can be done. So I want to talk about the strategies. And this student said, should I withdraw from the exam? So let me just start with this piece. I don't believe I don't believe in this case that you should withdraw from the exam. Just say that. But what do you do now that you have to handwrite the exam? So I'm going to offer some suggestions, and then I'll turn it over to Tracy and Amanda. The first thing I would say is if you have to handwrite, put your computer away and now start handwriting everything. Handwrite essays, handwrite performance tests, do it all under time conditions. There's nothing that works like practice, and you got to get used to it. Secondly, I believe you need to print, not write in cursive, because I think that there is gender bias. And if you're a woman and you're handwriting, it's pretty obvious women's handwriting is distinguishable from men's generally. And that's something you want to be really careful about. So I would print. Third, you must use an outline format, that is, with headings that have Roman numeral one and a 3 or 4 word caption underlined, and then you write in paragraphs. Do not write stream of consciousness, even though you're handwriting. It still has to be FLA, and it's still got to be that structure that you're working through. Final suggestion I'll make, because I don't want to take up all of the oxygen on this topic, is that I think you need to get a brief outline before you start to write. You need to know generally what you're going to write and then start drafting it. This is particularly true with the performance tests. You cannot do what some of us used to do back in law school, which was we just wrote and wrote, and then we started drawing arrows saying, go here, look here, go here. These examiners will not accept that in any jurisdiction. So you got to be pretty organized about what you do. And then you got to be really concise. You don't have the luxury of extra words here. So you got to say what you mean and just get to the point. So there we go. Now, Tracey, back in the day when everyone hand wrote, those strategies held true back then too, didn't they?
But yes, as far as I remember, I print and I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the other reason for printing is it's easier to read.
Yeah, totally.
But the thing that if you're going to handwrite your exam, you need to start practicing now because our hands are used to typing now. They're not used to writing. And there's cramping and there's all kinds of anomalies to handwriting that we don't have on a keyboard.
Yeah, that's really true. The good news is if you got a handwrite starting today, you got enough time to do it. It's a different thing if you just show up on the day of the exam. So I think there's that advantage. Amanda, what, anything that I've not talked about or anything you want to amplify
Yeah.
about?
No, I honestly think the practicing is really important too. So I just echo what Tracy said. And that's important. I repeat this ad nauseum, like how you're going to take the exam on exam day is how you have to practice. So we talk about not writing in Microsoft Word and using Notepad or one of those more blank screens to practice. And it's like the same thing with handwriting, right? If you're going to handwrite, use the same kind of pen that you're going to use, right? I mean, those kind of things matter because, like, your hand cramps and if the pen slipping, it's smearing, all those kind of little things. Kind of control. You don't have to be neurotic about it, but control what you can control, right? That only makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Jackson,
so.
let me add one other thing.
Sure.
I was meeting with a student this week who had taken the exam and forgot to bring the charging cord for her laptop and ended up losing power and had to switch to handwriting. Charging cords are not expensive. Go get a second one, pack it now. Pack it so that you have it with you and you're not running around the morning of the exam trying to find it. That's just one of those things that you can control ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other part, you're working with one of the coaches and you're in this handwriting situation, you got to submit work to the coach that's handwritten. We're not in love with reading it. We've all done it, and we need to see what you've got. My standard back in the day when everyone handwrote was that I needed to be able to read your handwriting upside down. Anything less than that, I considered to be illegible. And I think that's really true today because the examiners are not used to reading handwriting. So you've got to be extra clear. And I just want to emphasize this idea. If you're trying to do stream of consciousness, if a single page is one paragraph, you're in real trouble. It needs to be real short, concise paragraphing, even to the point where you might want to skip a line between paragraphs. So it's super obvious that it's a new paragraph.
Oh, absolutely.
You cannot write every other line. That's absolutely forbidden, particularly in Georgia. They will not let you do that. But you can skip a line between paragraphs safely. And I think ultimately, I am pretty sure, Amanda, you and Tracy would agree with me. This student should not withdraw from the exam. Would you agree?
I don't think so. No, I think that you have a fair shot at passing it. You're already registered. I don't see what the harm is in trying to take it. I don't see the downside
Yeah.
really because you're not getting your money back. And even at that, like you've already invested this much.
And the New York examiners are now saying if you apply and withdraw and apply and withdraw, they may not let you back in. So the rules are changing. And I think you just got to be aware of that. Whatever jurisdiction you're in, it is a dynamic, not a static environment. Okay. Not fun, not good, but manageable. And as I said, figure outable. So I think that's my view. All right. Thanks for that question. Next question. Those of you that are photo readers know that I send out, after you've been photo reading for a while, an exercise in which I ask you to do a set of multi state questions. And I have you do the set of questions 3 times. The first time I have you do it just cold. You haven't read anything, you haven't studied anything, you just answer the 25 questions. So we had a student that did that, and they got 9 questions right out of 25 in con law. Cold, just doing it. Okay, good. Then I asked the student to photo read and take the questions again, but not activating it, just photo read it, do the questions again. The student did that and their score went down. It went from 9 to 5. Then I asked a student to take the test a third time after they photo read again and they've activated and gone through and done the mind mapping in the lecture. And this time the student did it and their score stayed essentially the same at 6. All right. What does that mean? Interesting question. We don't see this pattern very often, but when we see it, here's what it tells me. In the first go round, when the student was just answering the questions, what were they doing? They were answering intuitively. They were just answering based on what seemed logical and reasonable to them. Then we have them photo read, and suddenly what happens is it's like Wile E. Coyote running off the cliff in the Roadrunner cartoons. They're running along, and they look down and they go, oh my God, I was photo reading. I didn't study it. I didn't underline or note it or memorize it. And they start trying to figure out the answers, and their score drops. And then they get panicked. And then they come back for that third try. And now they're so panicked, they can't even, they literally can't hear you. They can't breathe. They don't see the questions. They're desperately trying to get that score up. And they start pressing so hard, they can't possibly get the answers correct. And so the score drops or stays roughly the same. That's the interpretation I have for seeing those scores. The real question is, what do you do about it? And that's where I'm going to bring Tracey and Amanda in just a minute. But in my view, what this comes back to is that you absolutely have to quiet the noise in your brain, the monkey brain or the matote, the chaos in your brain, and you've got to use selective intuition. You've got to literally preview an answer and then select that answer. That will be made even more effective if you're a photo reader, but you have to trust it. If you don't trust it, it'll never work, because then what happens is you switch off that part of your brain and now you're working from your conscious brain, which has not received any information or material. As I often say, it's like taking your Tesla to a gas station. You're not likely to get very satisfied with the fuel at the gas station for that electric vehicle. And so it's really critical that you just trust this. And that's why we have you do this exercise. Interesting set of scores and an anomaly. Amanda, let me turn it over to you. I know you weren't a photo reader, although at boot camp you got a chance to start playing with that a little bit. But what's your take when you see that?
See the pattern of the scores going down?
Yeah, and what to
Yeah.
do getting the scores back up, because you teach our
Yeah.
workshop.
Yeah. And I also just, when I saw the question, I just wanted to tell everyone I submitted this same question to you. You probably don't remember, but like this was happening to me too around this time. And I was like, oh my God, that's just so weird that's happening. And I just asked, like, should I be worried? Am I doing something wrong? And you just said, no, it's all just what you just said now to me. And again, if I'm going to pay for something and buy into the system, I've told you all before, like, I just completely bought in and just was like, all right, I'm still working on my understanding. These tests don't have any bearing on the percent I'm getting right. They're not meaningful in that way until we get the online practice exams. And even then, they're still learning. And I worked with June a lot in her coaching calls and mindset to just break free of associating this percentage with mastery, right, of the subject. That doesn't mean I'm not mastering the subject. So all I can say is I really resonate with this because I had the same question and Jackson said the same thing to me and it all turned out okay. So just take a deep breath and listen to what we're saying here. And it's really hard to undo what we've been taught that like the percent you get right is how smart you are and how much and you need to know everything right now, right? That's been beat into us through a lot of different from grade school, right? So I don't, I'm laughing just because a very warm laugh at myself, right? I'm not laughing at the question. It's just, oh my gosh, I can so see myself in this question and remember how stressed I was.
Yeah, I think I probably had a virtual eye roll when you sent me the question. It was like, oh, come on. Uh, and then for those of you that don't know, Amanda scored an outrageously high MBE score. So she was fine. It's about process, not results at this stage. So that's part of it. And part of what we're trying to do is to figure out if you're photo reading properly. In this case, I'm pretty sure the student was photo reading properly, but they just didn't trust what they were doing. And that's why the score went down. Tracy, what's your thought?
I would suggest that the student and all students go back and journal a little bit about what they were feeling at the time that they took these three practice and what was going through their head and what their super ego was telling them. The super ego is what some people call the gremlin or the parasite in your head that tells you you're not good enough, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're never going to pass this, you're a loser. And I would I would be curious to see what the superego was saying to the student as they went through this process. And you're never going to get rid of that superego, but there are ways you can learn to set it aside and not have it be the controlling part of your brain. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Don't over don't overemphasize any of these results. I'm enough of a wonk that I like to do these kinds of exercises. They help me figure out where people are, what they're doing. You've seen undoubtedly in the online course, we've got these worksheets that you do. They're very useful to do the self-assessment. That's really what it's about is self-assessment. So don't turn them into absolutes, and it's too easy. And particularly right now, we're for so many days out. And I know for many of you, it feels like the exam is going to be tomorrow, but it is not. It is a long way out. As we all learn on this side of the equation, it will take a very long time to get to the end of February. And so don't freak out right now. Just keep working, keep trusting the process. I appreciated that the students sent me their scores. I think they can relax. It doesn't mean anything ultimately at this stage. All right. Thank you both. Another kind of typical question that I got over the last couple of weeks, a student was asking a question in this particular case about Florida civil procedure. And they pointed out that in my audio, I mentioned a particular time frame for something that had to happen there, but that didn't correspond to what the book said. And they checked the outline and the book said 10 months and something else said a year. Which one do they rely on? I say this every exam, and unfortunately, this is just the reality. You got to trust the written materials. The written materials can be updated on the fly. Amanda works with us on some of that work. And I know, Amanda, that you are always checking that stuff. And we have always some things that go on. There are hundreds, literally hundreds, thousands of hours of lecture, and we don't record an entire 4-hour lecture to change a single word. So if there is a discrepancy between book and lecture, go with the book. Is that fair to say, Amanda?
Yeah, I think so because the book is what's updated, right? And we might not go back and update the entire lecture. It's great when you're diving in and you're thinking about things. Definitely you can go too far like down this rabbit hole and I'm happy to answer questions like that when they come in and do a little research, but honestly, usually guys a quick Google search will show you that the answer like the law changed, especially civil procedure in like 2018 and okay, so lecture was recorded in 2017, we updated the outline, we didn't update the lecture. But I'm happy to clarify that for you. When it gets closer to exam date,
Use the outlines. We try and keep those up to date, and we work hard to keep that. working properly. Another interesting question was same vein. A student said in a Florida course, and they said, I'm watching your link to Florida Conwell essay, question 12, and it's a question about property. Am I doing the correct essay? Yeah, it's a homestead question. And then they wrote back and said, it's property. And I said, yeah, it's homestead. Look, I'm not saying we don't make mistakes, but we don't make those kinds of mistakes. When we put up an essay, it's the right essay in the right place. When we have an outline, it's the right outline in the right place. One of the interesting things that I've learned over the years is that the level of paranoia that starts to creep in of, oh my God, it must be wrong, becomes huge. I've done this for 35 years. I have made tons of mistakes, but I don't make a lot of those kinds of mistakes. And so just relax, take a breath. It is very unlikely that we put the wrong question, the wrong outline, the wrong lecture in someplace. June checks all that. I check it. Amanda checks it. We're always looking at it. So just take a breath. But this is what happens at this stage, isn't it, Amanda? People start getting really paranoid about this stuff. And
That's
I
what I
think,
was saying, right? Yeah, like, I was like, "Oh, this," that, like, I'm paying such close attention. I don't know, I was, like, trying to win the bar exam or something, but, like, I learned pretty quick that's not the way towards success, and through June's mindset coaching and stepping back and saying that not every little thing, and also, not for nothing, like, I have taught in other courses before, tutored in other courses, and I've had other books and other bar prep stuff, and there is way more mistakes in that content. I can tell you, like, I even, like, years ago, like, I found in certain bar review courses that shall not be named, way more glaring mistakes. So, there's just really not a lot here, and certainly nothing that's gonna make or break, like, anyone.
yeah, absolutely. And it's really, it's amusing more than anything else, but I don't want you wasting time and energy on those things. Just trust that the course is right and the system is right, and you'll be okay. So that was fun. All right. We got a really good question. Not that these others weren't, but this one I thought was pretty meaty. Student said, I want your advice for my final review. Bar exam, the California bar exam is around the corner. It's a long way around the corner. It's way down the block, but nonetheless. And this student said, I want to practice 20 MBE questions a night and one essay question a day during the weekdays. Is that good enough? Tracy, you want to take that one first?
Uh, No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to
I
answer?
yeah,
Okay. So the answer is no, that isn't enough. That is not even that is not following the course. And I want to be clear about this. We have designed this course built on an idea of spaced repetition, which means you read, you watch a lecture, you do your mind maps, you do practice questions, and you come back and you hit the material again and you do more questions and you build iteratively as you go along. The problem is that there is a world out there, the big box bar review world, that says if you do a certain number of questions a night, that's your guarantee of success. Now, I have shared this story in other places, but one of the myths about the bar exam is this idea that there is a prescribed number of MBE questions that you should do a night and it'll make it all work for you. Where that myth came from was that the provider of an MBE supplement course got irritated traveling around the country lecturing and wanting to go into the restaurant or bar at night and was being harassed by students that they had lectured to during the day who were asking questions. And this particular individual, and remember, this is going back many years ago, basically said to get the students to leave him alone, he said, go do 50 questions a night. To his surprise and amazement, that 50 questions a night became gospel. And everyone started saying, we got to do 50 questions a night. And he was smart enough to turn it into a marketing approach, but it had absolutely no bearing in pedagogy at all. And he acknowledged that. He just said, it's just something I did. And, but it took on a life of its own. And so people said, we got to do 50 questions a night. The fact is, it doesn't make any difference. You could do 100 questions a night. You could do 20 questions a night. It doesn't change anything. What changes is what you learn from it. And the learning comes from the repetition, which comes from the reading and the lectures and the practice, the way we've designed the course. In other words, we don't just throw the material out there and say, do what you want with it. there is a structure that we want you to follow. So when somebody says, what I'm going to do now, and we are a full 6 or 7 weeks before the exam, I'm just going to do 20 MBEs and an essay a day. Why? What's the point? Go through the course, follow the course, do that the way it's structured, and that's your best way of getting through the exam. So sorry to throw that out to you that way, Tracy, but that's essentially what I was trying to get at, is that I just think doing question practice is not valuable. Amanda, what's your thought?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't think I get this question a lot too. I don't think there's any magic number that's going to help. It is interesting, like that people think that, but I think it's quality, not quantity, or maybe some mix of both, right? But it's certainly not, oh, if you do this. And I do think at this point in time, students are looking for a guarantee. If I just do this, I'll pass. Like it's tangible. I can hold on to it so I can check a little box off. And unfortunately, the bar exam just is not like that. And it might, you guys might all feel really good if we told you, hey, just do 25 questions a night and you'll pass. But that's just not true, which is why I think people in other bar exam courses come to us and say, I did everything. No, you didn't, right? You did the 25 question. They said I'd pass, but they said I'd pass if I did that. Like, unfortunately, like that's a lie, right? It depends on your learning style. It depends on how seriously you take those questions. Did you rush through them? Did you give them the time they deserve? Did you review them? And people hang on, right? And I'm not in those courses, so maybe they talk about all that stuff too, but they hang on, students hang on to that. If I just do this one thing, right,
Yeah.
then I'll definitely pass.
Yeah. I had a call from a non-student of ours this week who said that they had taken the UBE and they had done the other courses, all of their questions, and they had passed every question for the multi-state in that course. And then they got a 128 on the multi-state and they couldn't figure out why. And I said, well, it's not just about doing the questions, it's what you learn from it, how you do it, and it's also the quality of the questions. We're one of the very few bar reviews that actually uses licensed questions. The big boxes, for the most part, don't, because it's too expensive for them. And so just doing questions by itself doesn't get you very far. I would also say just doing a random essay, while I think it's important to practice your essays, it's just not enough. You've got to have some focus and some structure. Now, this student did say that they wanted to use the rest of their time for outline and notebook review. I don't know exactly what they meant by that, but basically, what I really worry about are students that sort of jump off book. They start making up their own self-study program. And again, if we've got time, I'm going to tell you why trying to do it on your own off book is a bad idea. But I really think this student would benefit by just getting into the course, following the structure, doing the assignments as they see them. We've built the review into the course. You don't need to do it separately on your own. Tracy, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. I don't know how the student knows that the essays are any good,
Is that? Yeah.
and you can check your MBE answers, but it really is helpful to have somebody who knows what they're doing check your essays.
Yeah.
And
I
I,
think
yeah, I would agree with that too, Jackson and like Tracy, the thoughtfulness behind it. Because, like, in my coaching, like, I don't always recommend a specific essay, but I'll say, hey, it seems like you're at this turning point. What's a subject that's really weak for you? What's a subject you don't feel confident about? Okay, let's do that now. You have some guidance and really it's not like practice makes perfect, right? It's like perfect practice makes perfect. And I know we don't have to be perfect. We don't use that word a lot here, but still, like, you need some sort of thoughtfulness, not just you're falling down and you're just grasping at any branch that's going to keep you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're good at the coaching part. These coaches, well vetted, they're good. And so you should take advantage of it for sure. All right. Two other quick questions, and we'll get to Tracy's discussion of New Year's resolutions. Student said, I need help with mind maps. What do you suggest? We do have lectures and webinars in the course about mind mapping. We also have a product called Bar Maps, in which we create your mind maps for you for every subject, at least the first couple of levels. And it's a great product. I encourage you to take a look at it. It will speed up your work in terms of mind mapping. Doesn't take away all of it, because the real value of the mind map is the creation of it. But we create the superstructure so that you're not staring at a blank piece of paper trying to figure out what to do. So that would be my recommendation there. And then the last question, which is a big one that we're going to talk about a lot as we go forward. Students said, I'm wondering whether I should wait to take the next generation exam the 2026 bar instead of the current test. There was a student that was frustrated with their results and repeating. Tracy's been working on our material for next gen. It's going to be a very different test, but my take on this is you should absolutely be taking this bar exam. I would not wait the additional now 2+ years or more for this next generation exam. We don't know how it's going to be scored. We don't know what it's going to look like. We're beginning to get some bits and pieces here, but it is not a panacea. It's not going to solve the problem in and of itself. It's just a whole different test, and you got to start your learning all over again. So I would say absolutely, if you're ready to take a bar exam today, if you graduated law school, sit for this bar exam. Don't sit out. Tracy, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, what we do know is that approximately 40% of the new test will also be in the nature of MBE questions. And even the remainders of the exam, which will be performance tests, which if you're in a jurisdiction where you have to do MPTs, you're going to be doing that again on next gen, and a longer writing project. So it's really not appreciably different in terms of what you have to do. What's different is how they're going to go about testing it. And they don't really know yet. They're hoping to get some of it figured it out by the summer. With the test questions that they've sent, I can tell you it's going to be harder in some ways because in the multiple choice, there's going to be up to 6 possible answers. And sometimes you have to pick the best 2 and sometimes just the best 1. And so I, I'm wading into this now, and I've been practicing law for 40, almost 41 years now. I took the practice test the other day and I thought, wow, okay, this is interesting. I'm having fun with it, but I don't suggest that you try to have fun with it right now. Stick with what's in front of you and let us worry about the next gen. And when we get it ready, if you're still with us, we'll reach out to you then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Great. Thank you both. Tracy, let me turn this over to you for a minute here. It's 2024. It's a new year. You've got some resolutions you want to talk about?
No, actually, I don't, because I failed on all of my New Year's resolutions already. Feel free to put it in the chat box if you want what your New Year's resolutions were. One of mine was to eat no sugar. Forget that. One of mine was to be at the gym every day. That has not panned out. I have not been able to be at the gym every day. One of them was to be nicer to my brother. That one I was able to handle because he was gone and I couldn't reach him for 10 days or so. But now that he's back, I have a chance to go after him again. But this is the thing about New Year's resolutions. I remember in practicing law, and I practiced people law, whatever could happen to a person is the type of law that I practiced. And in January, I always told my paralegal just block off an entire week to handle people who want to come in and get their wills done because that was their New Year's resolution. I got to get my will done. And so many of them didn't follow through after we gave them the information sheet to fill out. If you are thinking that this January 1st, you were going to have a New Year's resolution, my God, I'm going to study every day. Or like this one student, I'm going to take 20 MBE questions every day and write one essay every day. That is not sustainable. It's not a good way to prepare for this exam. Preparing for this exam takes consistency. It's not a matter of making a resolution, by God, I'm going to do this thing, because usually those resolutions are combating with you, or else you wouldn't have a resolution. Instead, sit down, map out what you're doing for the next 5 or 6 weeks, and then work towards that plan and have times in that plan for unexpected things that come up. You're not going to be able to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, getting ready for the bar exam. You will burn out. And burnout is tantamount to failure every single time. Don't want to burn out. You want to be at your peak when you go for that exam. And the only way you can do that is by being consistent, not by making a bunch of ridiculous resolutions that you can't possibly keep, promises to yourself or others that you're going to break. You need to just take a breath, sit back, map it out, follow the map. So forget those New Year's resolutions. They don't work. And instead, just work your process, trust the process, get ready for this exam, be at your peak when you sit down to write.
Well, thanks. I promised you a story. I'm going to give you my story. For years and years, I have told bar students, do not try to be your own coach. Don't try to save a few dollars and do it yourself, put together your self-study cocktail, we called it, because it just blows up. Bad things happen. And you would think after sharing this advice for over 30 years that I would be smart enough to follow my own advice in other areas of my life. As many of you, I went on vacation over New Year's, went to South America, took a cruise, and I decided, for reasons that are inexplicable, that I would be my own travel agent. I would do my own booking, and with the help of a big box travel booking company, I would take care of all of the travel arrangements. Okay, great. Thinking that I knew something about it, although I've traveled almost not at all in my life. Got to Buenos Aires, ready to return home after vacation. And I had our travel documents, and I saw the airline and the airport, and all sounded good, and got on the tour bus to go visit Buenos Aires. And then the tour bus was going to drop us off at the airport. No problem. I've got this worked out. Arrived at the airport, stood in line for about an hour because it was Buenos Aires and a little crazy, and got to the front of the line and said, here's our documents. And the ticket agent said, oh, there's a problem. And I said, what's the problem? They said, well, you're at the wrong airport. And you're at the wrong airline. With about 3 hours to spare, I thought, okay, I can do this. Raced outside, grabbed a taxi, went all the way across Buenos Aires to the other airport where it's the local airport, and got in line again, only to find out I was in the wrong line. Still not the right airline. After an hour's wait, moved to another line, wrong airline, but I didn't wait an hour this time, but got to the front of the line, still wrong. Finally found the right airline, the right ticket counter. Now, I don't know how many of you have spent time in South America, but they don't have quite the same view of lines that we do in the United States. It was basically a free-for-all to get to the front. And after elbowing our way to the front, we finally got our tickets. Great. I still have about an hour to go. I try to figure out where the gate is, and I go to what I think is the right gate. Now, they're not speaking English, and I don't speak Spanish, I'm embarrassed to say. But suddenly, everyone stands up at the gate and starts running, and I can't figure out what's going on. And finally, I find somebody that looks like he's an American, and I say, what's happening? He says, I think they changed our gate. So we're all running to another gate, and we get to the other gate, and I breathlessly hand them my ticket, and they say, get on the bus. What bus? Well, they're going to take us on a bus out to the plane somewhere out in the airport, but it is lightning and thundering and raining, and we are boarding in a pouring rainstorm with no canopy, no umbrella, no nothing. And we get herded into the back of the plane. I'm thinking, okay, this is not bad. We're at least on the plane. Then the pilot starts speaking in Spanish with no translation. And it turns out that the weather's so bad that they're giving us a ground hold. And the pilot apparently says, we'll be here an hour, maybe 2 hours. I don't know. And we sit on the plane for 2 hours waiting to take off. Now, I had given myself, because I was going to be a travel agent, 3 hours to make the connection, and we made it by about a half an hour. I could continue with the saga of all the bad things that happened, but the bottom line was it took us over 40 hours to get from Buenos Aires back to Denver. Moral of the story was, I am a dummy for trying to do my own travel arrangements. I tell you all the time. Don't try to save a few dollars and be your own bar review coach. Listen, don't try to be your own travel agent and save yourself a few dollars. It was horrible. It was a terrible experience.
I told you you should have taken me on the trip. You never would have had any of this happen if you had a personal coach on the trip.
That was it. So there you go. So anyway, I just want to point out that there are life lessons to be learned here. This was one of mine. And it's just a truism that you should really let experts be expert and uh, let them show you what they can do. When it comes to your bar study, we've made the trip. We know what to do. We know where the problems are. We'll get you in the right line. We'll get you on the right aircraft. We'll get you to the right airport. Use our expertise. Join the group coaching calls. Get personal coaching. Work with us. Let us help you. Those of you that insist on doing it on your own are taking a huge risk. And for the investments you've made in your legal careers, it just doesn't make any sense. Our course is still the most affordable full service bar review in the country. There's no reason for you to not be using the resources that we provide. And I really want you to succeed and pass. We all do, but you make it exponentially harder when you try to do it all yourself. So P.S. Don't ever hire me as your travel agent. So there you go. So that's our story. I'm watching Amanda and Tracey giggle at me as I do this. That's the deal. Anyway, we will be back next week. Have no more travel plans, so I'm pretty sure I'll still be here. And we will see you all. There's a busy week of group coaching coming up. There's a lot going on. Check out the personal coaching opportunities. We think that they're helpful for you. And we will look forward to seeing Brianna and June next week. And hope everybody has a great study week. Thanks all of you for being here today. And we'll see you all next Wednesday. Bye-bye, everybody.